When we bought this 1930s bungalow in 2022, it had been derelict for 2 years and needed some serious TLC.
One of the features we liked about this property when we first bought it was the parquet flooring. Unfortunately, due to rising damp, we had to dig out the floors, so we decided to wrap up the parquet in bundles and store it in the garden. So after having stored this parquet for 2 years, we finally reached a stage in the renovation where we could build our dream dining room table. Let's show you how we turned this old parquet into a parquet dining table. I made a start on the weekend, clean up some of the parquet, just to get an idea what we're working with. We've got some ugly pieces like this, but we've got plenty of parquet to get through to be able to select the best pieces. We've had the delivery of 25mm ply. This is going to be our base for the table. So I've been cleaning up the parquet flooring, and this is how thick the table is going to be. We've got 25mm plus probably another 15 to 20mm. It's going to be a nice chunky table, and we're going to glue this on here, trim it up with some nice PSE around the edge. As well as having the delivery of the plywood, we actually had the delivery of our legs for the table. We found a few different legs that we liked, and we actually found a framed version. So we reached out to the company, which is the Hairpin Leg Company. Because of the size of the table and what we're making it out of, we wanted the frame version to create support all the way through the base of the table. We didn't want any bowing or sagging. So they actually came back to us in an email and explained that this would be a suitable fit for our project. And they actually enjoyed the idea of our project so much that they offered to send these legs out to us for free. It's actually been a few weeks since we've got the delivery, and we've been working out in the garden, making sure that gets done by the end of summer. But today we're going to start assembling this and get a plan for the table. Before we assemble this, I just wanted to talk about the frame. It's really well made. I can see all the welds are nice and tidy. It's finished in a powder coat. It's like a matte black, which is really nice. There's no scratches, and it looks like quite a simple fit together. We've just got 2 bolts either end of these rails, and that is it fitted together. I quite like that it has these adjustable feet on the bottom, so if you have uneven floors you can get it nice and level. Not only that, it's actually got like a ball socket on the end, so the feet can actually fall to the level of the floor if it's slightly out of level. So yeah, let's get this frame assembled. That was a quick 5-minute assembly, 8 bolts to hold it all together, proper sturdy, it's not going anywhere. And it also got delivered in 2 packages, so the legs came together as one little package, and then these rails came together as one long package. Nice and simple and easy to put together. The next step, guys, is to get this on and centered and get it fixed in. I'm just going to snap a chalk line down the middle, and I'm going to show you how to set up herringbone correctly. So when doing herringbone, the center of herringbone is not actually these corners, because when you start like this, you're going to have cuts either side of the table. They're not going to match up, they're not going to be even. The center of your herringbone is actually from the center there running down, so like that. So when you set up your herringbone, you actually want the center line as so. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to work out the center perfectly, and then we're going to measure off the center line and snap a new line to allow us to go point to line. What I've done is worked out a 45-degree line on this table perfectly to the center, and then I've just set my block up with the point right on the line, and I've just marked this point by here. And what I want to do is measure that gap, and then we're going to set our line off half that distance. So we have 51mm, and I want to set my new chalk line 25.5mm over, and that will then give me the right line for my point going up this table. This is my explanation for why we set the points off center of the table. So when they start overlapping, this shares 25mm overlap, that shares 25mm overlap from the dead center. Now if we had all this over, you would have 25mm longer cuts on the left hand side than you would on the right, and it'd just look awful. So when you set out your parquet flooring or any sort of herringbone design, that's how you should work out your centers. So this is the correct length for the table we're going to have, but it's not the correct width. This is 1220mm. We're actually going to have a meter wide table, so we do need to cut off 220mm, but I'm going to do that once we've put all the parquet floor on, and I'm going to trim it all so it's perfectly neat edges around the edge. So that's why we're working out the dead center of the table now, so I can then work out from the center and cut the edges perfectly. That's all the pieces we have for now, so let's get outside and clean up some more. I've just done a quick calculation before I go out there, and I need roughly 160 to give the exact square meters, but I think we're going to need another 10% on that for cuts. Here's where I've been storing a parquet. I need to get it outside to clean her up. Leave a comment below if you remember us taking it up from this room and packing it ready for storage. So we're just cleaning up the parquet flooring. So the first thing I do, so I just use the edge of my chisel and I go around, clean up all the edges, and then I'm just using the end of the chisel to scrape the excess tar off. Then that'll enable me to just quickly run a plane over, get a nice smooth finish, get it all clean, free from tar, and I'll do the same for the top, just take the top layer of varnish off and they're ready for gluing down. I've been at this for about 30 minutes and I've only done 7.
Basecamp sent me one of their desk masks to try out, and I've been using it mainly on my dining room table project. Between that and a few other small projects, I've worn it for around 20 to 30 hours, often for several hours at a time. I have to say I'm really impressed. It's durable, comfortable, and does a great job keeping the dust out without needing constant adjustment.
So I spent an evening cleaning up these blocks. We're going to lay them out now, select the good ones, get rid of the bad ones, and just see how many we've got and how many more we'll need.
1, 2, 3, 4.
So as you can now see, guys, we've got a bit of a visual effect of how it's going to look. I'm quite glad because I've laid them out roughly and all the corners are pretty much tracking perfectly on that straight line. So that means they're all square and it should be quite easy to put down. So we've had a quick layout of how wide the table is going to be. We did just show you the length, which looks good. But we're in a bit of a debate now because we wanted a we wanted a metre wide table. But where the ends of these blocks finish, Natasha reckons it'll be better to have no triangles. Whereas if we were to do the full metre, we'd end up having little triangles all the way down the edge of the tables.
I've been on the hunt for dining room chairs. I didn't want anything that was going to break the bank. I came across these lovely dining room chairs on Dusk and I put an order in.
I've had all 8 chairs delivered now. I've been in here. I've just put one together. It was pretty easy to do. I'm really happy for the quality, for the price, to be honest.
So now we have all the chairs built. It's time we get on with the dining room table. It's been a couple of weeks since we've set up the table and told you guys what we were doing. So today the plan is to get the centre in. I just need to work out the lengthways of how we're going to set it out. I did a test piece the other night. This is the test piece I stuck down with this glue. As you can see, I'm lifting the whole table up. That is not going anywhere. So that's the plan. We're going to PVA all this down. So let's dry run this out now and get it stuck in. So I'm just using PVA with a roller, roll the bottoms, roll some on the table, a little wiggle, and that should set them nicely. We've got the first run in. I had some variations with the blocks. It wasn't trying to follow a line straight enough, and I realised some of the end of the blocks are slightly out of square, which is not a big deal. So I squared it back up, used a straight edge to keep it in line. These little gaps now, which are not square, we can just fill in as we sand and glue all the top. So yeah, we're going to carry on with the sides with what we got, and we'll catch up here in a bit. So we've got 3 courses down, or 3 rows down, and that's pretty much all the blocks, apart from some which we've selected and put to the side because they're no good. So I need to do a lot more blocks to be scraped and planed down. I'm just going around now, cleaning the excess glue from the edges so it doesn't set and create issues down the line. We have had a couple of issues where the blocks in the middle are slightly shorter, I didn't notice, so it's caused big gaps in between, and then there's some which are a bit longer, which has caused them to overstep, which has caused more gaps. But it's all part of the charm. We're going for this old rustic table, reclaimed parquet flooring from a 1913s Bungalow.
At this point we were about 6 weeks into the project. The only way that Reese could carry on with planing them was to do them inside in our spare room.
So we finished this up last night, gluing it all down. I put some extra blocks in the corners, just to get everything finished. There are 2 blocks at the top that I do need to glue on, but I'm going to do that after I've cut all this in plain drill. So all I've done to set out for my cutting now is I've made a mark where the plywood is, and I've just drawn a line across. You can see I've got 2 lines. The first line, as you can see there, didn't quite cover that corner, so I've just set the line 5mm back. That'll be my one cut. And then for the ends, rather than using straight edges, I've just used a chalk line from the one corner of this, done the same down the other end, pinged my line, just double checked it was catching all these lines. On this one, it was slightly off, so I've had to set it back again 5mm, and I've repeated the process on that long edge and the short edge up there. It's all square and parallel, so we're good to go. So I'm using my track saw, my plunge track saw. Gives you a nice straight cut. I can go through several passes, especially because my blade's not very sharp. I should get a new blade. But if you don't have a plunge saw, you can use a skill saw and just set up a long bit of timber with some clamps, maybe a couple of pins through the middle, stop it moving, and just run your saw along. If you don't have that, you could try a hand saw. It may take you a while, but as long as it's fairly straight, you should be okay. Now that the table's cut to size, I'm going to use this planer to take all the high spots down and get it pretty level, and then from there we'll sand her up and then put the edge trims on. So cutting through this, guys, just as I thought, because my blade was a little bit blunt, 3 passes to get through each run, which is not too bad. Didn't really struggle, but if I had a fresh blade, I probably could have done it all in 1 pass. So I've got some spots here which are really low. It's probably about 2 to 3mm. So the plan is just to go around the entire table, several passes at 1mm, and then when we get to a pretty good level, I'm going to drop it down to 0.5mm and then drop it down to 1/4mm, and that should get everything fairly flat and shouldn't have too much ripping up of the wood. As I mentioned before, guys, I picked up this cheap planer, which was 22 quid second hand. The reason for that is because this flooring might have bits of nails in, which I can see one there, and it was covered in bitumen and varnish, so I didn't want to wreck a tidy plane. So for 22 quid, it's done a good job of cleaning everything up. Now it's going to do the final job of getting it all level. Now got the table down to a level where all the dirty spots have disappeared. No matter how much I try, I can't get these lines out from the plane. I bought that cheap plane and it's appearing to be a nightmare. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sharpen my hand plane now, get that nice and sharp. I'm just going to go around, focus on these little high spots and try and smooth the worst of it out. Once I've done that, we're going to come back in with the sander. Because the electric planer is digging in too much, I've had a look at the table. The plywood's not perfect, so it's all like dips and twists. So as I'm going along with the plane, it's digging in, creating all the gouges you can see. Even when I go to a lower setting It's not quite making it and it's just giving me gouges everywhere. So the easiest thing for me to do now is to go around with the hand plane, set it to a fine amount and go across and just take all the high spots out. I've already taken it right down almost smooth there. Carry on through the table. Natasha asked me to give her a go with my 80 grit sandpaper, which I sanded over here and it just didn't touch it. It's just sort of like smoothed everything on top and left all the dips in the table rough. So that's the plan. Plane first and then sand. Gone over this table now with the plane, taking the worst out. I need to pick up some 60, 80, 120 grit pads for my sander, but it's Sunday morning, Screwfix is currently closed. But just to show you how much I've taken off this table, here's one of the blocks where I've only planed a little bit off the top and the bottom. And as I put it on, it's about 5mm lip. So it just shows how much I've gone down to take all the defects out of this table. We've finished trimming everything up and taken the worst of the high spots down. Picked up some sandpaper, 60, 80 and 120 grit. We're going to start off with the lowest, just absolutely blast it, try and get everything as smooth as possible, and then just work our way up the grits. So we've almost finished the dining room table, guys. We've got one more piece to go. We've got a little triangle which we want to etch in our logo into, which is Natasha up on the screen. We were meant to do this maybe about a week and a half ago, but unfortunately the laser decided to break on us and we had to buy replacement cable for here so the camera would work. Finally got that, tested it, it works, and this is the last piece to the puzzle. I'm going to put this in here now. We're going to engrave across the bottom our logo, and that can be glued in, sanded up, and then the table's ready to go. And there we have it, guys. We've got the last piece of the puzzle, all engraved, ready for a bit of glue, sanded, and it's finished. We had a little mishap and had to remake this corner block. I used black ink in the resin and I tried sanding it out to make it neat, but as you can see I sanded out all the actual lettering and the ink just soaked into the timber. I should have thought about that. So we've redone it. We're just going to do it in clear resin because it's dark enough already. I'm just going to glue this in now with some wood glue, drop it in, and then once it's dry we're going to put some clear resin in, let it set, and then we can scrape it back and sand it off. So that is now glued in, clamped in. Give that an hour or two and that'll be set. This is the resin we're using. It's crystal clear, low viscosity, and it says no bubbles, so we should be okay. I'm just going to mix a little bit in this pot now and slowly dribble into these letters by here, and hopefully it sinks to the bottom and we get no air bubbles. Alright, so I've filled this up now, gone right over, given a few mil coverage, so you can see it there bubbling up. Hopefully that doesn't sink too much and we get a nice flat surface, and once I scrape the excess resin off we can give it a good sand and you'll have a nice dark engraving of our channel. I'm just going to start finishing up this table. What I need to do is I need to collect a load of sawdust in this bag. So I've taken the hoover off, I've hoovered out this bag, made sure it's absolutely spotless, because I need to make a filler with the same wood dust to fill all these gaps, which are quite bad in some places, but once all the fillers in there it should be fine. So I'm just going to chuck the dust mask on, which I got from Base Camp, which has been a lifesaver on this job. Put some ear defenders on, give this a good going over with some 80 grit, or maybe it might be 60 grit, and try and get it all smooth. We finally managed to get this engraved tidy. I scraped off all the resin, just needs sanding up now. We just put clear in, but because of the burn marks from the laser, it's come out black anyway. So our first attempt with the ink I didn't even need to do that. But yeah, nice massive table. I think it looks quite good. I've given all this a good sand with a 60 grit. Before we move on with the other sandpapers, I'm just going to half fill these large gaps to try and take up some of the space so we don't waste any of the sawdust and filler. So I've collected my dust. Hopefully this is enough to fill all the gaps. I'm just going to put it on the table, mix some PVA in, get it to a consistency so it's a bit of a viscous filler. Then we could go around, fill all the holes, let it dry, sand it down and see if we need to do any more.
Earlier in the video you will have seen Reese wearing the dust mask from Base Camp. Base Camp have gifted us this mask.
Through the entire renovation I've always resorted to the disposable masks. The thing I really liked about this mask was the design of the straps. It's really comfortable and supports the mask on your face nicely, and you don't need to fiddle around adjusting the straps at all. If you're interested in purchasing one of these masks, use the link in our description.
If you use the code JENK10 you'll get 10% off your order.
We hope you guys enjoyed the process of us making this table. It's not 100% finished just yet. It needs one final sand and we need to choose a finish for the table. If anyone's got any good ideas of what we can finish this table in, something that's going to be hard wearing but look natural, give us a shout out on Instagram or in the comments below. If you guys were looking to do a project like this yourself, I'm going to give you a rough cost breakdown of what it's cost us. We were quite lucky on this project. The legs for this were gifted to us. If you wanted these type of legs, they would cost £310, but depending on your project, they got a massive range of legs you can use. For the pine parquet, we obviously had this for free. All it took us was £25 for a planer to clean it all up. If anybody lives in Cardiff or the surrounding areas and needs some parquet, we've still got quite a lot left over in the front room. And to finish the table off with some nice chairs, we actually got these from Dusk, I believe. Yeah. And for all 8 of them, it cost roughly £410. For the base of the table and the trim, we went to Robert Price and we got this for £53. So all this you see at the moment with the chairs would probably cost you around £780, maybe £800 once you've finished with a sealer, which we think is a very good value for the size of the table and all the chairs you get with it. We really think that this project has been one of the most creative projects we've done to date on the bungalow.
It's been really nice to take something old to new.
We want to say a really big shout out to Hairpin Leg Company for providing the legs to make this project possible. If you guys do end up making any projects, give us a tag on Instagram.
Our handle on Instagram is selfbuild_the Jenkins.
In next week's video, we're going to be doing a house tour, and we'll also be showing you our next project, the window seat.